green mic. That is exactly.
He's trying to mess with me. He's colorblind, so who knows what's happening.
You just hold it up to your face.
Okay.
There you go. See? It's perfect. All right. Am I good to go? I'm good to go from there, too. Greetings and welcome to Christ United Methodist Church. I am Reverend Zachary Hopple. I'm the senior pastor here, and I want to thank you all for being here for this wonderful event. I am not going to introduce our speaker. I'm going to leave that to Marge. But I do just want to give you some details. We do have some refreshments in the narthex after the service. The bathrooms, there's women's room out these doors. There's men's room down that hallway, just in case you need that. And I also want to let you know that we are live streaming tonight so that other people can share in what is being shared with us this evening. So I'm going to open us in prayer and then turn it over to Marge. Dear Lord, we do thank you for this wonderful day and the beautiful weather that you provided for us this evening. We thank you for this opportunity to gather and just to have some fellowship and to learn and to grow. We ask that you be in our midst and that you keep us safe as we depart from this place. And all that we do, we ask that you be with us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So good to see you all. I know Scott has a cheering section over here, and we're so happy that you're all here with us. One thing that I should mention, Scott will be happy to take questions, and he will let you know when the time comes for that. Right? Okay. I tried today to take Scott's life and kind of encapsulate it into a couple sentences as way of an introduction. That was not an easy thing to do. So I'll give you just a couple snippets into his life. He is a local person. He has deep roots in the community, grew up in the Montgomeryville area, went to North Penn High School, where he has received the North Penn High School Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame Award, which I think is a fitting honor for him. Also, North Penn High School gave him his wife, Michelle, because that is where they met. And they were married in this church in... Okay, you did it, right? He got it right? Okay. Right here. So, and his mother-in-law, Barbara George, raise your hand, Barb, is a member of our church as well. So, okay, on to some facts about Scott that are, to me, were fascinating. He flew 42 combat missions in support of Operations Desert Storm and Southern Watch over Iraq. He led a 24-aircraft strike into Kosovo under heavy fire and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross with Combat Valor. He retired from the Navy in 2006 after 21 years of distinguished service, having accumulated over 4,600 flight hours, 725 carrier landings, and he flew over 80 combat missions. As a member of the Blue Angels, Scott was an ambassador for the Navy and the Armed Forces, traveling over 300 days a year, visiting VA hospitals, children's hospitals, high schools, and ROTC units. So he has been a busy man over all these years and represented our country so well, and I am so pleased to introduce Scott Moyer to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm honored to be here. And Reverend Zach, thank you very much for having us, and we appreciate that. And Miss Jen, thank you for your AV help, and Andrew back there, because while I can fly airplanes okay, I cannot work that stuff, so I'm totally technologically challenged, so thank you very much. And thank you, Nana, for hooking Marge and I up and introducing us and putting this together. And more importantly, thank you for the gift of your daughter. So 38 years ago, we walked down the aisle and we're married right here in this church. So it's really cool to be back here, and thank you all for coming to join us. So speaking of Michelle, when you hear, I'll be talking about my incredible journey that I was so gifted to have in the Navy and flying for the Blue Angels. But the hardest job in the Navy is the Navy wife or spouse, and a lot of people have heard that, but it's totally true, because while I got to go around flying supersonic jet fighters with my hair on fire and doing all these cool things that you see in the pictures behind us, she's at home by herself raising the kids, and she crushed it because our daughter, married a Navy pilot as well, so we're still in the Navy. And our son is a Navy SEAL, currently on deployment, so we still have pretty tight roots and connections to our Navy. And that's a tribute to Michelle, being able to make every move an adventure and not complain too much about the Navy. So our kids are in the Navy now too. So anyway, sure enough, as Marge said, we'll have some fun. We'll do a little bit of chit-chatting and hopefully some questions and answers and stuff, and a two-way dialogue instead of just me standing up here babbling. But grew up in Montgomeryville, and I learned to fly at my grandpa's airport, Turner Field, if you might remember that, down the road on down Horsham Road. And I had a passion for flying when I was a young person, and so when I graduated from college, I thought my dad would say, "Son, you're hired," and I could work at the airport. But instead, he threw me a curveball and said, "If you really want to make a career in aviation, you should look into the military." And I was like, "What?" I didn't know anything about the military. I wasn't from a military family. And so I thought the judge said either join the military or go to jail. And I was like, I didn't even steal anything. Why am I having to join the military? But I went down to the Air Force recruiter in Philadelphia since I wanted to be a pilot, and I figured that's what you do. You join the Air Force. But they didn't want anything to do with a business major from Millersville University. They wanted technical degrees in the Air Force. So one of the instructors at my family's airport was a Navy guy. So he says, "Hey, Scooter, why don't you look into the Navy?" And I was like, "Well, because I'd really like to fly jets, not drive boats." And he says, "No, you dummy, we have aircraft carriers and we land on ships and that's fly jets." And I said, "Well, that sounds exciting and sounds dangerous. Let's check it out." So I went back down to Philadelphia to the Navy recruiter and took their little test, and they said, "Congratulations, you've been accepted to flight training." So we went down to Pensacola, and I went to Aviation Officer Candidate School, which is kind of like our version of boot camp, if you will. So if you remember an old movie called Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere, so that's kind of what that part was. And so next thing you know, I'm down there getting yelled at by some mean drill instructor, making me do push-ups and sit-ups and all this kind of craziness, but got through that, and they said, "Okay, now you can go start flight school." So we went down to South Texas, and I learned to fly jets in the Navy, and Dad was right. The training in the military is second to none. So that was really awesome. I was lucky enough to get selected to fly fighters, so we got stationed out in Miramar, out in San Diego, and I was flying F-14 Tomcats in the 80s, right after another movie, Top Gun, came out. So my career is basically just a couple of movies all strung together that worked out really well in my favor. So we got to fly F-14s off of aircraft carriers and fly some combat missions, and that was pretty exciting and stimulating. And then I had enough flight time and experience that I was able to apply to the Blue Angels. And that was a little bit humbling because the first time I applied to the team, you go through a whole process. You submit a written application, and then if you're lucky enough to get selected for an interview, you go down to Pensacola and you sit behind the table, and they all fire questions at you. But the first time I applied, I got a letter in the mail saying, "Thanks for your interest in being a Blue Angel. Good luck with your Navy career." In other words, go away. So I applied in the next year when the application season happened, and it was the same thing. I got another letter in the mail saying, "Thanks for being interested in the Blue Angels, but we're not interested in you." So, darn, this is not working out quite the way I'd hoped. So the third try is a charm. So I applied to the Blue Angels for my third time and was lucky enough to get an interview. So you get down to Pensacola, and you sit at the table, and they fire questions at you, and they pick your brain and figure out, whether you're the kind of guy that they want to be with for 300 days a year. And so I was nervous, of course, but I sat at the table, and I answered all the questions from the heart. And when I was done, Michelle said, "Well, how did it go?" I called her, and I said, "Well, I know two things. They know who Scooter Moyer is, because I answered everything from the heart, and I don't know if I answered them correctly or what they wanted to hear, but they know who Scooter Moyer is. And I know the other thing for sure, there's no way they're going to pick me." Well, the way it works, you fly home on Thursday, and Friday, they give the calls to the guys. There was 8 of us final interviewers that were down in Pensacola, and so the phone rings, and you're hanging out in your squadron in the ready room, and of course all your peers, all the other pilots know that you're rushing to Blue Angels and that you're waiting for a phone call this afternoon or whatever, right? And finally the phone rings, and, "Scooter, it's for you." I'm like, geez. And they kind of mess with you a little bit because the boss calls you and says, hey, Scooter, you did a really good job with your interview, and you're going to have a great Navy career. You are right on track for the highest levels of everything. And you're just kind of going, okay, thanks. He's letting me down softly, which is real nice, you know. So what do you want to do for your next career or your next tour? And I'm kind of going, well, I don't know. We'll see how this works out. I was an instructor at the time, and then they put you on speaker, and all the team members are in the ready room, and they put you on speakerphone, and they go, welcome aboard. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh, I still get goosebumps thinking about it. It was just crazy. One of the top 10 happiest days of my life. So walking down here with Michelle, having our 2 kids, getting home from deployments, top that list. But that was pretty incredible. So we were lucky enough. It's a 2-year tour in the Navy, and the Navy kind of goes sea duty, then shore duty, then sea duty and shore duty. And that's kind of the way they seduce you into staying in, because sea duty is pretty challenging. But then you do a couple years of shore duty as an instructor or something. You go, oh, that wasn't so bad. I'll sign up for another tour. And then you're out on an aircraft carrier going, what was I thinking? So for my 2-year shore duty, I got to be on the Blue Angels. So I was on the team, in 96 and 97. Were my 2 years. And then you go back out to the fleet and land on aircraft carriers. After a tour with the Blue Angels, you owe the Navy 2 years of sea duty after that, because they think it's a pretty good deal that they let you fly their blue jets, and so now you have to go back and pay them back on an aircraft carrier. And then in 99, a couple of guys were killed in Georgia in a mishap, unfortunately. So they asked if I'd come back to the team for the 2000 season. So I'm the luckiest person in the world. It was unfortunate circumstances, but I got to be a Blue Angel twice. After that, I went back to the fleet, landing on aircraft carriers. They told me I could be commanding officer of a F-14 squadron. So I was in charge of 250 sailors and officers and pilots, and 14 F-14 Tomcats, supersonic jet fighters that I was in charge of. And it was awesome getting to fly those incredible machines. So after that tour, I was at 21 years, and they said, okay, it's time for you to go to the Pentagon and do what we call a disassociated tour, and basically you start driving a desk. As you get more senior in the military, the flying opportunities start to fade, and you don't have as many chances to fly. And since I had spent 21 years, 2 tours with the Blue Angels, command of a F-14 squadron, I figured, you know what? They caught me. They're on to me. I've been having too much fun, and it's time to go. You got to know when to fold them. So I told them I was not really interested in going to the Pentagon, and you could make me an admiral tomorrow. It wouldn't be as cool as what I've been doing. So we sailed off into the sunset. Now I fly for Southwest Airlines. But I've got a short video that kind of talks a little bit about the Blue Angels and what their mission is and what they do. So if there's a way we can cue that baby up, and we'll, okay, you ready to go? We'll take a look at that, and then maybe we'll answer some questions and have a little fun. Ready when you are.
Ready, hit it. Take it in.
I was number 2.
The Blue Angels, the United States Navy and Marine Corps' premier flight demonstration squadron. One cohesive team. We are steadfast in our mission to showcase the teamwork and professionalism of the United States Navy and Marine Corps by inspiring a culture of excellence and service to country through flight demonstrations and community outreach. Stationed at Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida, the team performs flight demonstrations throughout the United States and around the world. Since 1946, the Blue Angels have brought naval aviation to men and women of all ages. They began flying the F-6F Hellcat and have since flown a variety of aircraft showcasing the capabilities of naval aviation through the decades. Today, our pilots fly the Boeing FA-18 Super Hornet, a multi-mission strike fighter, versions of which have been operational throughout the fleet since 2001. A typical week starts in Pensacola, where the team practices the flight demonstration, perfecting even the slightest details of each maneuver. By the end of the week, the Blue Angels are ready to head to their next show site. The maintenance and support team travel aboard the Marine Corps C-130J Super Hercules, affectionately known as Fat Albert. Flown by an all-marine crew, the Blue Angels Super Hercules flies more than 100,000 miles each show season, carrying all of the maintenance and support personnel and equipment needed to perform each air show, and performs tactical maneuvers as part of the flight demonstration. Upon arrival at each show, it's down to business for the whole team. The pilots practice for their upcoming performance, and the maintenance team prepares each aircraft for the show, ensuring they are in top-performing shape and completing any vital maintenance before the demonstration. On show day, the team arrives on the flight line and rev up the aircraft. The maintenance crew make their final checks on the jets, and the pilots prepare for the demonstration. It's showtime. Like a carefully practiced ballet, the maintainers and pilots move deliberately and in unison. Each movement is meticulously executed, from entering the cockpit and pulling and running the chocks that keep each airplane in place. Each team member of the Blue Angels knows their parts and performs them with pride. The pilots line their aircraft up on the tarmac for launch, and with a blast of smoke, they take to the skies. From the pilots to the maintainers, each Blue Angel is hand-selected from the fleet, embodying hundreds of years of Navy and Marine Corps tradition and heritage, and a representation of the 800,000 men and women who serve and defend our nation each day. Teamwork and trust define the Blue Angels and are the most important aspect of the squadron. From the precise wingtip to canopy separation of the Delta to the upkeep of the jets, each team member relies on one another, and each Blue Angel strives for excellence in everything they do. With a final salute and a handshake, another Blue Angel show is complete, but our mission is far from over. One of the most rewarding aspects of being on the team is spending time visiting hospitals, schools, and community functions. Across the country, we take time to interact with young people and discuss the benefits of military service and share our enthusiasm for naval aviation, hoping to inspire others to pursue their own dreams and service in their communities. Our hope is that tomorrow's leaders will be encouraged and motivated by what they see in our performance and all the men and women who make up our team.
Pretty cool. It's amazing. I watched that, and I have to say, sometimes I can't believe I did that. That is crazy. But it's incredible when you see an organization, a group of people. When you see the 6 jets, we used to kind of say that we borrow them for 40 minutes when we fly and do our air show, because the guys that are maintaining them and the level of trust that goes into that, because when I walk out and strap that jet on, he's already, I don't do anything. I don't pre-flight anything. I just jump in and go fly and do an air show. I'm trusting that the guy, my crew chief, has done all the checks on the aircraft, all the hydraulic systems are good to go, fuel systems and everything. So you see the control surfaces moving when the guys are doing their thing. When I get in, I'm just borrowing it for 40 minutes from my crew chief and from the maintainers that take care of it. And so it's really impressive. Those guys are the best in the Navy, and to have the opportunity to serve alongside of those men and women is just an incredible honor. And then you go back out to the fleet, and that's kind of who you're trying to represent when you're on the team with the Blue Angels. But it's an incredible organization, and when you see that show, if you get an opportunity to see the Blue Angels in person instead of on a video, it's really, really impressive. So again, I still pinch myself and go, wow, I did that. Pretty cool. So anyways, anybody have any questions that you've always wanted to ask somebody who lands on aircraft carriers in the dark? What's wrong with you? Yes, sir? I thought I saw, yes, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, so it's very right. It's interesting. So we're going to start a little bit further apart, a bit further apart, and higher up in altitude. And we go out to El Centro, California, out in the desert, where the weather's perfect and it's just a desert, so nobody's complaining about noise or anything. And we're going to fly 2 flights a day and 3 flights a day. So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, we'd fly 2 a day. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we fly 3 times a day. So 6 days a week, 2 or 3 times a day, we're flying. And the way it works is I can't see, like I was number 4, so I'm the guy in the back in the 4-plane in the Diamond. So the boss is going to tell us everything he's going to do with his aircraft. So he'll say, up we go, and on the gut and go, we're all going to pull back on the control stick so that we all go up at the same rate. If I waited until I watched him, then you'd get like a slinky effect, if that makes sense. So we're just going to keep practicing, and he'll say, come in left, and then he'll move the aircraft. And on rolling maneuvers, he'll say, okay, and on the cut and K, we're all going to start rolling. So it's a symphony, and if you've ever seen some of the documentaries, before we go out and fly our practice or our show, we're going to sit at the table, and the boss is going to talk through his narration of every maneuver that we're going to do in that practice or that show. And we're going to close our eyes and concentrate, and they call it chair flying, and we're going to imagine that we're actually flying the jet, and then when we go out and strap on the jet, you're there. But it's pretty close together. So there's times when late in the season, like after we've done a lot of practice and gotten very proficient, and the boss is a real solid platform to fly off of, if it's calm winds used to make my stomach sick because you're bouncing around and it's really hard to be flying 2 or 3 feet away from some other aircraft when you're getting jumps around like that. So calm winds over the water, we could snuggle up, and there was times when the wingtips would be about as far as this microphone from each other. So that's pretty snug at about 350 miles an hour. So yeah, it's a lot of training and a lot of practice, but eventually it turns into an air show. In the back, we had one. So we had our first female Blue Angel, Amanda Lee, just finished her 2-year tour last year. She was number 3 and number 4 as well as I was, and she is incredible. So now she's back in the fleet flying F-18s off of aircraft carriers. But that was the first one. The Thunderbirds have had a few. And it's interesting because I think there's not all that many female Navy fighter pilots. I think the allure of being on a greasy aircraft carrier with 5,000 other men isn't really all that attractive to everybody. So there's not very many females to choose from. But Amanda was our first, and hopefully she's an icebreaker, and there'll be more. So, yes.
Hold on, wait for a microphone, please.
Okay. Oops, we need a microphone. It's coming your way. Oh, because we're streaming. Right.
Oh, okay.
I forgot about that.
You allude to the fact of the closeness in proximity that you're all flying together. Mm-hmm. And then you also allude to, you actually land these planes on aircraft carriers. Mm-hmm. Of the two, which is the most intimidating?
Nothing is more intimidating than landing on an aircraft carrier at night. During the daytime, it's not too bad. But as with most things in life, I feel like I kind of had it backwards. I was worried about when I got selected for the Blue Angels, I was worried about being gone so long. You're on the road almost 300 days a year. But the cool part is when the show schedule comes out, it doesn't really change. So you kind of know what city you're going to be in and what day you're going to be there, what hotel you're staying in. Back in the old days, what the phone number was before cell phones. But so you could actually make a plan, and Michelle would bring the kids to different shows that were close to. We're based in Pensacola, Florida, so we might do a Jacksonville show or whatever. So she'd load the kids in the van and drive on over and spend the weekend with us. So it was a pretty good family tour. Otherwise, I don't think she would have let me go back the second time in 2000. And I wasn't too worried about the flying because I'm thinking, to your point, I can land an aircraft carrier in the middle of the night on a pitching deck. I must be an okay pilot. Goodness gracious. The first flight that I got when I was with the team, they give you kind of an orientation flight. You join the team and you travel with them for the last couple months of the season just to kind of get to know them and see how the things work. And they put you in the back seat of the 2-seater, and we go rolling down the runway, and we're not this high off the ground, and the number 4 jet that I'm in the back seat of slides into the slot, as you saw in some of those maneuvers, and next thing you know, I've got these 2 wingtips here and here from number 2 and number 3, and we go up into a loop, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? And that flying for the Blue Angels was so much more demanding than I ever imagined because, so the solo guys, number 5 and 6, and we have a pretty good rivalry with those guys. We're the Diamond guys. 5 and 6, they're out there max performing the aircraft. So they're pulling 7.5 Gs and minus 2 Gs and blah, blah, blah. They're doing all the flips and rolls and stuff like that. Whereas the Diamond, we're flying like a couple feet away from each other, and it's really intense and hard work. And you're doing that 6 days a week, and you always have to maintain that same intensity level because you could crash on a practice in Pensacola on a Thursday in September, and you get just as dead as you do in a show in front of 1 million people in Chicago, for instance, or whatever. So that intensity level has to be there for every flight. So that was pretty demanding, but it's not too terribly hard to get pumped up when you light the afterburners and you go screaming down the runway, and next thing you know, you're doing a loop and you're going, okay, I'm pumped up, I'm ready to go, we got this. But it pales by comparison to landing on a carrier at night. I don't miss that for a minute. Yes? Oops.
Sound barrier.
Yes.
What's it like inside the plane when you do that?
So you can hardly tell. As a matter of fact, when you first break the sound barrier, you can't tell. And we've had guys, the number 5 does a sneak pass at the air show, and he has gone supersonic and blown out some windows and car windows and building windows, and he didn't even know he was going supersonic. So you can hardly tell. The controls get a little bit more sensitive when you get a lot faster, like 1.5 Mach or 1.5 times the speed of sound. That's then it starts to get a little bit different. The controls are a little bit more reactive, but this technology is amazing, and you can hardly tell. And it's sort of like having a nice, I don't have an Audi or a BMW or whatever, but and all of a sudden the cop pulls you over and says, "You realize you were going 85?" You're going, "Oh crap, no, I didn't." So that's the same thing with the sound barrier. You get flying along real fast. The next thing you know, you look down and you're going, "Uh-oh." Oh, good.
What was your hardest mission?
My hardest combat mission was the first strike into Kosovo. I was the spare on this mission. So the guy who was supposed to lead the mission, his aircraft broke on the aircraft carrier. So he comes up on the radio and says, "Hey, Scooter, Brew." I go, "Yeah, what do you got, Brew?" He says, "Yeah, my jet's down. You got the lead." And I'm going, oh, goodness. I didn't even really want to be on that mission, but next thing you know, I'm the lead. And so we take our 24 airplanes and we fly over the bad guy country, and we find our target, and we drop our bombs and make some of the bad guys go away, and we go back, and now we have to land on the aircraft carrier at 3 o'clock in the morning after being shot at, and you're on night vision goggles, so everything that they're shooting up at you is really, really bright and pretty stimulating. So then you drop your bombs, and now you have to go back and land on the aircraft carrier, and I was drenched in sweat, and I get down the ready room, and the guys are just there, "Hey, Scooter, how'd it go?" Like nothing happened, and I'm like, I just about got shot down, then I had to land on a carrier, and I'm kind of tired. But my favorite maneuver on the team is the double farvel. So if that picture comes up where 2 of the jets are upside down and 2 of them are right side up, I was number 4 flying formation upside down on top of the flight lead, the boss, who's also upside down. And it took me a really long time to learn that maneuver because for some reason when I'd flip over, what happened? There it is, yeah. So there you go. So I'm number 4, I'm upside down. Boss is number 1, he's upside down. 2 and 3 are right side up on the wings. And when I would learn that maneuver out in the desert, when I was saying that we flew 2 and 3 times a day, for whatever reason, I would flip over and my brain would leave me because I couldn't figure out like what radio switch to talk on, even though it's the same. I'm like, oh, crap, now I'm upside down. What do I do? So eventually I figured it out. So that's my favorite maneuver, the double farvel.
Well, thanks for your service.
Oh, thank you. As you can tell, I was blessed.
And my question is, did you ever have to eject from a fighter from
No.
a plane and what that would feel like?
No, I have not. I did not. Thank you for being lucky enough to not have to eject. I've got a bunch of friends that did. I have one friend who did twice. So yeah, and I just played golf last week with a buddy of mine, Ross, who ejected right in the landing pattern at our base in Virginia Beach where we fly out of. Landed in a tree. They had to come out and like cut him down out of the tree. So, and most of those guys lose a couple inches of height because you're sitting on when the ejection seat is got a whole bunch of rocket motors underneath of it. So when you pull the ejection handle, it just shoots you into the sky. And they have what they call now 0-0 seats. So you don't even have to be up in the air, and it'll shoot you high enough that your parachute will open and you'll land. You might break your legs, or you might not necessarily like it, but in theory you won't die. Theoretically. Yes, ma'am.
Hold on.
Oops, hold on, microphone.
I'm loud.
We need it for the online people.
Oh, okay. On TV and in the movies, it looks like the aircraft carriers are very calm and they're moving very slowly. Is that true?
Generally, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, generally it's not, it is really stable. There are some times when the sea state is such that it's moving up and down pretty good. The worst part is when it does what they call a Dutch roll, because now it's going up and down and around or whatever. And that's when it gets pretty tricky. The instrumentation that they have now is better than when I was there, but even then it was still really good that it would keep up with the movement of the ship. So, but it's pretty incredible because we would land our 56,000-pound F-14, and as soon as you touch down, you go to full afterburner in case you don't catch a wire, so that you can fly off, and that's called a bolter. And so you've got your tail hook down, and there's 4 arresting gear cables strung across the back of the aircraft carrier, and you want to hit what we call the 3-wire, so it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. You don't want the 1-wire because that's pretty close to the back of the boat, so that means you were kind of low, and you only have about 3 feet of clearance if you get the 1-wire. So the 4-wire is okay, but if you miss that one, now you're going around. So as soon as you touch down, you go to full afterburner, and the arresting gear cables are strong enough that even an F-14 in full afterburner, which is a supersonic Mach 1.8 aircraft, it'll stop you, and you just come to a halt, and you're like, oh my gosh, all right, that's cool, and your heart's pounding, and it pulls you back, and then you raise your tail hook, and they taxi you over, and you park the plane, and then you go downstairs and have a hamburger, and do it again the next day or night. Crazy. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I like it.
Hold on.
Oops. I'm going to remember this one of these times.
Just ask. What is the interview process like? What kind of questions do they ask if you're able to disclose that information?
Oh, sure, for the Blue Angels?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like a job interview in that they kind of want to know a little bit about your personality. What are your quality traits? What are you good at? What are you bad at? What makes you angry? And let me see, they asked what was the dumbest thing I've ever done in a jet, and what's the most scared I've been in a jet, and so kinds of questions like that. So I've done some interview preps for guys both trying to make the team on the Blue Angels as well as other jobs, and you have to kind of sort of think about your answers. So for instance, if they say, what was the dumbest thing you've ever done in a jet, you don't really want to say that you've done anything too dumb, even if maybe you did. And the most scared you've been or whatever. So, like, what makes you mad? Well, you don't really want to say, well, I have horrible road rage, and because I don't want to be flying next to somebody 2 feet away from me when he decides to have a fit of air rage and crash into me. So, yeah. But it's kind of like a regular job interview, sort of. And we do networking. So we'll look back, we'll contact our friends in the fleet and say, hey, who's this Scooter Moyer guy? Is he a pretty good guy? And, you also want him to be a good pilot as well. So if they said, yeah, Scooter's real nice, you'll enjoy his company, he's not really very good at landing on an aircraft carrier, well, that's probably not the guy that I want to fly 3 feet away from either, even though he might be nice. So you kind of want to try and find the person that's got good flying skills as well as a personality that you can hang out with because you're with them more than you're with your family. So, yeah, it's a good one, though. I like that one. Yes.
So we're a church, and one of the things we do is take care of each other, which I am sure you guys did with each other. But we also try to learn how to trust each other. And for me, I would love you to speak for a moment about how do you develop with a 6-inch gap that trust that comes up?
It comes from commitment, showing up every day, ready to go, willing to give 100% to this effort. That's the coolest thing about the Blue Angels that I think I'm an avid sports fan, and it's interesting when you see a team that has chemistry that comes together and is very successful. So the trust that you get with the Blue Angels comes from when we practice and we start farther apart. We spend a lot of time debriefing. So after each practice, everything's videoed, and we go back and we put it on the TV, and we go through each maneuver by maneuver, literally almost frame by frame, and we're going to talk about what we were doing, what we did good, and what we did bad, and wow, that was a close call. How do we make that not happen again and learn from it? And by doing that day in and day out and showing up every day, willing to be humble and take constructive criticism and put your ego aside, and all of a sudden that trust just comes together, and you have a great air show. And there's always different levels of good teams and great teams, right? But I was blessed to be on a really, really solid team. Started with a boss who was totally open and honest, and he was learning. He was a first-year boss, so he's just learning these maneuvers, and I'm his instructor because I'm number 4. But man, he showed up every day ready to go and giving 100%. And when you see that in your wingman, and you gain respect and trust by doing that. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's about showing up and being totally committed. That's what's so cool about that organization. Even those guys that are working on the planes, they are totally committed to putting out the best air show in the world, and they do. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Thank you. How much turbulence can you guys take being a foot apart?
So we'll use different sets, we call them. We'll use different closenesses based on the conditions. We did an air show out in El Paso, Texas, my second year on the team, and it was howling winds, like 45 knots, and we are getting bounced all around. And I'm telling the wingman, so as number 4, I'm kind of the safety observer in the formation. So I'm in the back. See, boss can't see what's going on behind him. 2 and 3 are working really hard flying off of the lead, and I'm in the back, and I'm going to make sure that they don't get too close to each other or hit one another. And then I'm also backing up the boss on his airspeeds and altitudes, making sure that he's in the right parameters for each of the maneuvers that we're going to do, because I can kind of come in and look at my heads-up display and check our altitude and our airspeed, and then I'm going to watch the wingman, and I'm going to back the boss up, and we're going to do our thing. So like on that particular show in El Paso, I was like, okay, boys, no, we're not getting close today. We're gonna look good, but we're not gonna look that good. So because we were getting rocked and rolled pretty good. And when we landed, it goes back to that trust thing that we all kind of looked at each other and said, that was work, man. That was hard work, and we did it. We put out a really good show there, and that again develops that trust, and then you get the smooth air and you can really snuggle up. Yeah, it's pretty neat. And she already has a microphone.
Yeah, I'm all ready. I'm all ready.
love it.
Can you talk a little bit about the community engagement angle for the Blue Angels?
Oh my gosh, yeah, thank you, because I almost forgot. So on Friday mornings, we go out and talk to VA hospital, children's hospitals, high schools, ROTC units, and so on and so forth. And you just kind of do a little presentation, show the video, questions and answers like we're doing here, and sort of let the folks know what's going on and that the Navy does fly airplanes, right? Because I didn't even know that when I was growing up. So we kind of do a little bit of that. But the best part is every Friday, no matter what city we're in, our show is dedicated to the local Make-A-Wish Foundation. So after we get done our practice, the Make-A-Wish kids get to have front row seats for the practice. It's just a practice on Friday. And then after the practice, we bring them all out, let them touch the jets. We don't really let them sit in them because going back to that ejection seat thing, we don't want anything like that to happen. So, but these kids these kids get to come and get a front row seat for an air show, and then, boy, I'll tell you, you might have a tough practice and you're a little bit down on yourself or whatever, and then you see these kids come out and the battles that they're fighting with their families and the struggles that they're going through, and you go, I'm so humbled. And every Friday, we got that injection of humility, and I think it was awesome. I think there's too many, maybe, athletes or movie stars or something that don't get that injection of humility and get grounded. Whereas on the team, every Friday, that was just so humbling. It was really cool. It was one of my favorite parts of being on the team. So I'm really glad you asked that question, because that meant a lot to us on the Blues. Yeah.
So the more you talk, the more questions I have. On that vein, do you guys ever get together, like do alumni flying, the different groups of
Wouldn't that
angels?
be awesome? No, there's no old timers old timers league for us, unfortunately, because like the Toby Keith song, I'm not as good as I once was, but I think I'm as good once. Just let me strap that blue jet on one more time. But we do get together every year for a reunion in Pensacola, the end of season show. The last show of the season is usually when the former team members all as many as can try and get down there. And it's really cool to be a part of that fraternity, and the guys that flew back in the Vietnam era, and the F-4 Phantoms, and some of those guys that are still around that can come and tell their stories. It's just awesome. It's like talking to Grandpa. So cool.
So I've probably watched Top Gun 100 times.
Nice.
And, I'm just wondering, what are the statistics for how often that last number 4 wouldn't work, that a plane could miss and plunge, or does that ever happen?
Well, it does sometimes. Let's see, the original Top Gun is what we're referring to? Yeah, and his ejection seat didn't work, and that was bad, but that was theater. The naval aviation in general is it's very safe, but it's very unforgiving. And so I think that's kind of the best way to think about it. I was nervous at times, but I was never felt like anything was unsafe, So you're in control, but it's unforgiving, and things happen fast. So, yeah. So poor Goose, he didn't make out so well, but his son did in the second one, so that's good. In Maverick. Well, anybody else? Okay, sure.
During your combat missions, any air-to-air?
No, and I like to say, unfortunately, I didn't get to shoot anybody down, but nobody shot me down either, so I guess that's okay. The first Desert Storm, we thought we might have some air-to-air mission combat, but the Iraqis parked their aircraft right away after the first night because we shot so many of them down, so they didn't fly anymore. I'm like, well, that's kind of a bummer.
What's your call sign?
My call sign is Scooter. What's yours? So I'm Scooter, and what's your call sign?
I don't know. Wild.
Wild. That's a pretty good one. That would work in the Navy. That would totally work. That would work. Well, thank you all so much for coming out. We're going to go out and have some snacks and mingle a little bit if that's okay. And Miss Marge. Oh, thank you.
Michelle, I think you should stand up and be recognized, because this was part of your life too. My
Totally,
goodness.
as I said earlier. Thank you.
I wouldn't normally do that, but after everything we've heard, I really thought that was important. So I wanted to let you all know this is such an exciting time for our church, because this is the 150th anniversary of this congregation. And we have had events up till this month. This, I think, has been the jewel in the crown, really, is having you here with us.
Thank you.
Because we've planned to have something every month through September, which culminates in a picnic and a big celebration. On May 4th, which is a week from tomorrow, we are having a concert. We had a special piece commissioned for our church in memory of one of our members, and as part of the celebration, and that will be unveiled next Sunday, and we will have bells and a huge choir. So we invite you all to be here at 4 o'clock for that on May 4th. And on May 17th, we are having a prayer fest from 10 to 2. You can come in at any time through those hours, and we will have various stations that will help you with your prayer life, give you some awareness of different aspects of prayer, something you can do at your own pace, and something that we're working very hard on when we welcome you all to join us for that. We're here on Sunday mornings at 8:30 and 11, and if you have not been here before, we'd love to have you come back and worship with us. And I think that's everything, right? So thank you all for coming, and again, there are lots of refreshments out there, and Scott will be happy to chat with you and maybe even take a photo or two. I'm
Absolutely.
thinking so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you again.